everyone, and welcome to today's training session about PolyScan and the SmartApp Collage. The objective of the SmartApp Collage on PolyScan is to have the better input, meaning the best product at optimum dose and at the right time on must finding, and to having a direct decision very fast and very efficient directly at the tank in order to sublime and express fully the GRAPE potential in enology. So first off, the main objective of this SmartApp Collage with the PolyScan, it is to assess polyphenols in must prior to must selling to adapt the finding. To classify the tanks into 4 categories, I will get back to this information later on in the presentation. It's to also help you in doing the right decision and for the finding agent and the dose of the finding agent that you choose, depending on the must that you're talking about. But what is really important to keep in mind throughout the whole process is that the analysis on PolyScan should be performed at the end of tank filling prior to must settling and finding, and the analysis has to be done in the winery at the tank right after sampling. For that, we're talking about specifically the SmartApp Collage to help you on decision making. But anyways, the PolyScan is a tool that was developed to always use in the winery and at the tank right after sampling. Just a few reminders about the different must finding objectives, because when we talk about must finding, there is not just a perfect finding or just a right or wrong finding. There are different objectives that can't all be met in the same time. So what we have is the objective of clarification, meaning reaching a specific turbidity, having a specific settlement, for example, lowering as much as possible the volume of lees at the bottom of the tank. We have also an objective sometimes of organoleptic impact of the finding agent. For example, lowering the bitterness of the must on grape varieties that we know have specific problems with that, or improve the length of the must, or improve the volume. We can also want to have an impact on the color of the must or on the polyphenols. So we're going to mainly focus right now on polyphenols and organoleptic and color, but I really want you to keep in mind that there is no right or wrong finding, and it's just about the objectives that you use. So make sure you define one or two objectives that are the main objectives you want to meet, because there is no perfect finding agent, and every finding agent is going to react differently according to the matrix, but also to its own properties. So first off, just a few words about the PolyScan. That is a new alternative to characterize polyphenols. It is based on voltammetric measures, meaning that the electrons that are in the double bond here on polyphenols, on these benzene cycles on polyphenols, they're going to be released slowly during the measure of the voltammetric. It's going to give a signal, and this signal is going to be different from one must to another. For example, the curve here is one example of the signal that is created thanks to the electrode. And this signal, since it's specific, we can talk about a fingerprint of must and wines. And this measure, thanks to specific calculations of that were determined by WQS by Vinvention, they're able to calculate the 2 different indexes that give information about polyphenols. These indexes are EasyOx and Phenox. The EasyOx gives you information on the most easily oxidizable compounds, while Phenox is about total of polyphenolic compound of the must or wine. Also, there's another index that you can have on wines that is called evolution trend that will give you an information on whether the wine is more or less sensitive to oxidation. So here on this picture there, you can see the PolyScan, that is a tablet that was a bit changed to adapt it to the PolyScan. And here you have a stripe that is somehow an electrode that you connect to the PolyScan, and on which you're going to put the sample on here, this very small part here. So this is just a drop of must that you're going to use, or wine. So what is really interesting with this tool is that you can use it directly at the tank. You have to use it directly at the tank. It's very small. You can just have it in your hands, and you have a very efficient result, very fast. And it's you don't need to prepare your sample. So you just collect the sample in the tank and then take a drop and put it on the stripe right there, and then do the measurement and you're good to go. So what the PolyScan actually does, and what we were able to gather from data with the PolyScan and the several years that we've been working on, is that we were able to classify musts in 4 different categories, depending on whether we're looking at a must that is higher, or that has indexes that are higher or lower than the median from the grape variety. For example, if we have a must that has a phenox index that is higher than the median for the grape variety, we say that this is a P plus must. So here, if we consider here to be the median of the phenox and here to be the median of the esiox, all of these musts here have a phenox P plus that is higher than the grape variety median of the grape variety that is considered. On the other hand, if you're here, then the value is lower than the median, so you're what we call P minus. It's the same principle when we're talking about the esiox. So the median is here. If we're lower than the median, that's E minus, and if we're higher, then it's E plus. So for example, a wine that is P plus and E minus, it means that we have a phenox that is higher than the median of the grape variety that we determined in the PolyScan, while E minus, it means that the esiox is lower than what we've considered in than what the median of the considered grape variety. What is really interesting is that since we've been able to determine the types of the 4 different categories, we're able also to differ the finding objectives depending on those polyphenols indexes, meaning that we know if we're talking about P plus musts, so phenox higher than the median, these musts are rich in polyphenols. So one of the objectives of finding could be lowering the polyphenols. While when we're talking about musts that are poor in polyphenols, meaning the P minus category here, it's either that the grapes were naturally poor in polyphenols, or because the polyphenols were fully extracted, for example, because we've had a very gentle pressing cycles, just like it's the case in champagne for the base wine. In that case, the objective of finding would be a little bit more about protecting those polyphenols, making sure that they're not going to break down too easily. When we're looking a little bit more about the esiox, if we're in a category where it's in E minus, so lower than the median, the grapes were unprotected, meaning that they were a little bit oxidized already, so we can have some browning in the musts. In that case, finding is mainly about adjusting the luminosity, because the must might be too dark, and the hue, especially in rosé, reduce both red and yellow, and in white wine reduce the browning. On the other hand, when we're talking about esiox plus, these grapes were already protected, or either by sulfites or by inerting thanks to a neutral gas. So in that case, it's more about adjusting the luminosity of the color because the must might be too dark. But in any case, we have to think about the ones in those 4 categories, and that's what the PolyScan helps you to do and what the Smart App Collage is all about. And it's made to think about whether we're in those 4 categories and whether what it's most interesting to act on, depending on those types of characteristics of must. So looking at all of this, it led us to, with the encounter of both the SOFRALAB group and the WQS expertise, that is the company that has been developing PolyScan and NomaSense Color. We've had 3 vintages of trials at the experimental cellar. We've carried out also national trial in laboratory and industrial cellars, both with PolyScan, color, and tasting. And there've been over 40,000 measures in the database, and it's in continuous increase. And we've been working on PolyScan since, WQS has been working on PolyScan since 2012, and the sensor has been marketing since 2015. And all of these trials and expertise and knowledge of our finding agents led us to the Smart App Collage, which is an application that was developed by SOFRALAB to help in decision making. So knowing knowing what the must is like, thanks to PolyScan, we're able to recommend, depending on the objective that you have in your must online, recommend what is the best finding agents on to use depending on the objective. So first off, I would like to show you a little bit what the PolyScan looks like. I have it with me right here. So like I said, this is a tablet that has been a little bit changed here. So you turn on the tablet, and this will actually, after you select the PolyScan application on the tablet, this will lead you to this window here. And on this window, you have the different menus that you can have thanks to PolyScan. And what we're interested in today is the menu must tank here that we're going to be working on when we want to use the Smart App Collage. But first, prior to using the Smart App Collage, you have to determine what parameters and what finding agent you want to select to have your to help you in your decision making. Those finding agents, you can so you enter parameters by clicking on the tool here, then you select glue settings here, and then this will lead you to this window right there, where you can select the brands that you want. By clicking on the window here, you can select all of the finding agents that were parametered for Martin Vialat or Station de Technique de Champagne or Ono-France. So you select which one you have, which one you want to compare, and then even in the different brands, you can select the finding agents that for example, you have in the seller or you want to compare. You can select all of them if you have them all, or if you're able to have them all. You can select just a few of them, or even one of them if you wish, if you, for example, want to have a recommendation on the best dosage for one specific finding agent. So once this is done, you select the finding agents, and then you validate by clicking here. And then you go back to the home screen where you want to launch the measurements. So to launch the measurements, you have to click on Must Tank. Then after that, you click on what kind of color you're going to be working on, either rosé, white, or sparkling must. You select the grape variety. You give a name to the series. For example, if you're going to do trials in for several trials in wine winery, it can be the name of a winery, or then you give the sample name that can be, for example, the number of the tank and the date to know what tank we're talking about. Then once all of this is made, you put on the electrode on the back of the PolyScan. So I'm going to do it. So you take the electrode the uh, from the box. Then you be careful just to handle the electrodes either by the white part here or by the edges. Never put your fingers on something else. You can see this is that size. So my recommendation is take it by the edges because you have more strength to put it in in place here. That is behind the PolyScan. So you put the electrode, you push it a little bit just to make sure that it's completely in. You can see that you don't see the white part of the end. It's just the white part is inside the PolyScan and you can see only the blue part. Then once the electrode is in and you've filled out all of these information, you put the PolyScan flat. Then you sample the must that you want to analyze, and then you put the must on the electrode. So it's just about a drop that you can put right here in this space. So it's really just a drop. Then once you've put the drop there, you press start. Then the PolyScan is going to tell you that it's running the analysis. Then it's going to tell you that when the analysis is over, so you will see a graph of the voltammetric graph that is done. Then this will give you this type of results where you have here the series name that you've given to the series, here the sample name. Here you have the values of EZOX, of phenox, and phenox of all of the measures that you've done in this series. And if you select here one of the measures that you've made, it's going to give you here the results of EZOX and phenox, the median of the grape variety that you've selected. So here in that case, the median is 35 for the EZOX and 495 for the phenox. You have the maximum that has been observed in the grape variety that you've considered, that you've entered. And then it's going to give you what kind of type of must that you're looking at on those 4 categories. So here we are in a case where it's P plus and E plus. Now, if you want to go on with the SmartTap Collage, then you click here on the Anoteris logo. And it's going to open up this page, this window. In this window, it's going to ask you what are the objectives of the finding that you want to carry out. So you select the type of sealing, whether you're working on static sealing or flotation. You can, of course, only select one of those two. Then define the finding goals. Like I said at the beginning of the presentation, there is no perfect finding agent, and you can only you really have to determine the main goals of your finding of must. So here you can only choose 1 or 2 finding goals, whether it's about clarification or speed of clarification. So when we talk about clarification, it's about the final turbidity of the must. Whether it's about the colors, so decreasing the hue or decreasing the color intensity, so changing the H or L value somehow. And finally, about the organoleptic objectives that you have, either working on bitterness, length, or volume. And finally, you can also choose the wanted regulatory requisite. For example, if you want to work on allergen-free, organic, vegan, or NUP, just so you know that the organic is for EU regulation. Once you fill out all of this window, you can click here on results. And it's going to tell you that on the selected objectives, on the selected regulatory requisites, and the must that has been just analyzed, the best results in that case with selected finding agents, meaning that if you choose other finding agents to compare, maybe it's going to give you another result. Then in this case, on the case that we tried, the best result was Origin Fmax at a 50 gram per hectoliter dose. So if you want to change for the results, maybe you realize that you don't have that finding agent in the cellar anymore for some reason, or meaning it's not your favorite finding agent and maybe you want something else for whatever reason, or just you're curious and you want to try out something else. You click on parameters to select finding agents and brand, where you come back to one of the first windows I showed you where you can do the selection of finding agents. So what is also interesting is that you can see it on that slide here, but sometimes if you haven't selected all of the finding agents, and you have some finding agents that you don't have in the cellar, but that we would consider to be better in the objectives that you've defined and on the must that you have analyzed, you're gonna have written next to this rectangle here an alternative finding agent, sorry, that we consider would be better in your case than what is recommended here, meaning that this alternative is not a finding agent that has been selected prior to launching the trial. Then once this recommendation is given, you fill in the tank volume, you click here to validate, and it's going to give you the recommendation, the volume that you want to treat, and the quantity of products, meaning here Origin Fmax, that you're going to need to treat the volume of tank that you've defined. You can click here also if you need to have some information on the product, for example, or what kind of product it is, or how to use it, or some other information on the product. But basically, this is how the app works. Then, if you want to do another measure and another smart app collage, then you click on next, and you're gonna just redo all of the process where you select you're gonna just put a new name for the sample. Or if you're just done and you don't have any more sample, you can just click on end, and then this will finish the trial. Just to give you the information of the products that have been registered and that are available right now in the Smart App Collage. For ENOFrance brand, this is ENOVEGAN Pure, ENOVEGAN EPL, and Filia EPL for the vegan products. Gelatin N also, that has been registered. PVPP has also been registered. For the Martin Vialat, KTS Flood, Polygreen, Provegan Pure Must, and Gelisol have been registered, and finally for Station Technique de Champagne, Origin Fmax has been registered as well. So just a small reminder on how and a protocol to use the PolyScan on the must tank menu. First, do not carry out a measure with PolyScan on a must or wine that has been previously sampled. Prior to sampling, prepare the PolyScan like I showed you, turn it on and open the app. Select the type of measure that is must tank. Select the color of the must, rosé, white, or sparkling. Filling the grape variety, that is mandatory, the grape variety with majority if you have a mix of grape variety. This is mandatory because all of these decision making and the information on the must is also relying on the median of EasyOx and Phenox. So the median depends on the grape variety. Then name the series, name the sample, connect the electrode, and do not use an electrode more than once. The PolyScan has to be flat, otherwise the must will get inside the PolyScan and it will not be on the electrode to do the measurements. Only now can you sample the must on wine. If you sample it at the tasting valve or any other valve, rinse the valve prior to sampling to make sure that you don't use just the volume of must that is in the valve, but to make sure that you get something that is really representative of the tank that you're going to analyze. And sampling, if you do the sampling thanks to a sampling device, don't sample at the top of the tank where you've had some oxidation at the top, but in the middle of the tank. As soon as you've sampled the must, press start on the PolyScan. Once the measure is finished, then you can disconnect the electrode and proceed with the SmartApp collage like I just showed you. You can click on next if you wish to do another measurement, or end if that was the last one. Like I said, next or end depending on whether that was the last one or not. Also, if you need to go back to your data, it's available from the home page here. You just click to data and you're gonna have a list of all of the series that you've made, and you can just click on the series that you're interested in and you'll get all of the results back, the results that are looking like that. This data button allows you to go back to the series, and then clicking on the series, this will get back to this. But whatever the category of must finding also involves organoleptic impact with decrease of bitterness, increase of volume or increase of length, or clarification and speed of clarification, or must deposit, meaning the volume of lees that you're going to get at the end in the bottom of the tank. So it's all about the objective and compromise, meaning that even if you're depending on the category of must that you're in, it's going to you have to keep in mind what is the main objective, whether you want to act on polyphenols, whether you want to act on organoleptic, on clarification. And the SmartApp collage, thanks to the PolyScan and the categorizations of the musts and the objectives that you're going to select, it helps you, considering all of the different parameters that we said earlier, it's going to help you choose the right finding agent and the right dose. So in conclusion, it's all about first collecting data, especially if you have if you have grape variety that are specific from the country and the region, to get those to define these median if they haven't been decided yet. So if you enter a new grape variety, you're gonna have it's gonna tell you that you're entering a new grape variety, and then you have to have at least 30 to 50 measures on these grape varieties on must to actually have an idea of the kind of median that you're gonna get on those. So if you don't have the grape variety entered at first, the median that the PolyScan is going to give you is the median for all white, rosé, or red, depending on what color you've selected on the PolyScan. Then once you've when you've had these median defined, it's going to categorize the musts according to the EZOX and PHENOX values, the median of the grape variety. So that's going to give you the informations about must characteristics. And then in the end, the SmartApp is going to help you in choosing the finding agent, the dose of recommendation, depending on the objectives and constraints that you've decided on and that you've selected. For any further questions, or if you need assistance, please feel free to contact the R&D department here at SOFRALab. So either myself at the following email address, or Céline Sparrow. We are available should you need any assistance. Thank you for listening, and talk to you soon.